Hello everyone, welcome back to Jack Plays. A bit of a different video today. Today I'm going to be ranking all V10 production cars produced. Now, this isn't a Gran Turismo video or racing game video, I'm just going to try something new on the channel here. Hope you lot do enjoy this. I've put a load of work into this, so give it a like if you did enjoy it, let me know that you enjoy it. But yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so starting down in the D tier. Now I'm happy to say there's only two cars from D tier. D tier is for cars that are actually bad. So these two cars share the same engine, they're actually from the same manufacturer, and these are the VW Phaeton and the VW Touareg, and they have a 4.9 litre twin turbo diesel V10. I don't know what VW is trying to achieve here. V10 is best suited to production cars for the noise that it makes and for bigger engine or bigger vehicles, being a suitable replacement to the V8 engine. Now, it's a good job they're able to improve these cars and make the Audi RS6 a lot better, bearing in mind that VW and Audi work. Now, generally big displacement diesels have just a single turbo, so the fact this engine has a relatively small displacement yet two turbos shows that they're trying to make it a more performance design sort of engine, while also maintaining the hard working diesel factor of it. But this seriously didn't work. There's no design that has good power and plenty of torque, the rest of it just feels disappointing. The Touareg weighs over 2.6 tonnes, and that may help slow it down a little bit. The MPG is alright at 22. Compared to other SUVs at the time, it's not actually that bad, but probably wouldn't want to be driving it around town regularly. Now let's talk about the Phaeton. Now this car had a good platform being based off the Bentley, but unfortunately just wasn't able to do well. These engines or these cars also had a lot of reliability issues, so for that reason they're going to be in the D tier. Okay, so now moving on to the C tier. Now this C tier is reserved for cars that are, generally quite bad and have some serious issues, but do, have a bit of potential to succeed. Now there's only two cars in the C tier, which is good. The first one being this Tatra truck that you can see on the screen from roughly the 1980s to the early 2000s. Now I'm not going to bore you with different engine variants of a truck from the 80s and whether it was influenced by Soviet Union designs, but what I am going to tell you on the surface is that it was a reliable truck with a lot of different engine models available. However, Tatra decided to add a bigger engine and expand its uses with use for V10. However, as soon as they released the truck with the V10, European emission standards meant that the truck was actually unusable. So essentially the truck was banned the second it was released. So for that reason it's going to be in the C tier. Okay, so finally in the C tier, we're going to talk about the surprising one actually, and that is the Ital Design Zero Uno. I hope I'm saying that right. Now I must say this isn't actually a bad car, so I don't want you to get the wrong impression here, but it's just that its competitors are a lot better. Essentially an Audi R8 with just an extra bit of downforce. Now, sharing the same engine as the R8 and the Hurricane, it does have good performance. Top speed of 205 miles an hour and a 0 to 60 time in 3.2 seconds is quite good, there's no denying that. But I don't like how they're taking the engine from another car and the performance is exactly the same. You would have thought that having the DT just take the engine and improve it, if you will, they'd at least, improved it. They have added some aerodynamic things to improve the downforce of the car, and I think that it's probably a lot faster on the track and it does look a bit better. However, I don't understand how they can justify selling the car for nearly 1.7 million euros, almost 12 times the price of the Audi which it is based off. Now, for this absurd price, it is going to be stuck in the C tier. Okay, so now going to be moving on to cars that are in the B tier. Now these cars are generally alright. It's not bad cars, but they're nothing special. It's it is what it is. Then there are quite a few cars in the B tier, which I guess is good, making use of the V10 engine, there's nothing wrong with that. First up, we have the series of Ford vans that all use the V10 version of the Triton engine. I hope I'm saying that right. Now this is probably from about 1990 to about 2000, something like that. Now this is a widely produced engine series, that being the Triton, with a range of different sizes. So some notable cars which have used engines from this series are the Ford GT, the Ford Mustang, the TVI Griffith, and even the Koenigsegg CC8S, which was for a while the world's fastest production car. However, we're going to be talking about the V10 model specifically. These can have anywhere between 288 and 360 horsepower, with 300 to 500 foot-pound of torque depending on the number of vans. So its stats are pretty good. These engines had been used in a range of applications such as motorhomes, SUVs, vans, trucks, cabs and even the bus, as you can see on the screen. Due to being a reliable engine, in fact some of them have been converted to run on other fuels such as petrol and propane. I think the bus was able to be run on propane, I'm not really sure on that one. This allows manufacturers to experiment with different fuels, potentially being more efficient and better for the environment. Now while these engines were reliable, they didn't really provide anything new, so for that reason they are going to be in the B tier. Now next beta car is something that some of you may or may not have known, that is the Wiesmann, I hope I'm saying that right, MF5. It's a German kit car that borrows the BMW M5's V10. Put away some very impressive stats, nearly 550 horsepower and nearly 8,000 RPM. Its performance isn't the best, now it gets 60 around 4 seconds, which isn't bad. Top speed of 193, which once again is pretty bad, but I don't know. It's also very expensive. Reviews say this car does handle very well, but its price just puts it in the B tier for me. Now, despite being a kit car, it is actually very heavy at 1,405 kilograms. I remember they did a Top Gear test against the TVR Tuscan, and even the Tuscan, which looks a bigger car, was nearly 500 kilograms lighter. So the weight is probably why it is a lot slower. So for that reason, it's going to be in the B tier. Then we have a surprising one, that being the Lamborghini Gallardo.
This then is the £117,000 Gallardo, Lamborghini's idea of being sensible. The wild wings and flared wheel arches of yesteryear are gone. So too have the protruding buttresses. And the complex V12 has been replaced by a 5-litre V10, which is almost economical. And look at this door. Look at that. See, unlike the doors on previous Lamborghinis, it doesn't open outwards and upwards in a scissor dodecahedron fashion like a gull's wing. It's just a door.
Now, this car started off as a good V10 car, but it just needed some improvements really. So while the Viper was able to improve over time, generation after generation, we'll get to that later, by the time they got the Gallardo right, they had already moved on to making the Huracan. But the Gallardo was still pretty good. It shared the original engine with the Audi R8, that being the 5.2 litre V10. There was also a 5 litre V10 that was available from the start. But there were some differences as to why this car was a bit slower than the Audi R8 despite having the same engine. To start with, both the Gallardo and the Audi were both mid-engine rear-wheel drive. But whereas the Audi kept on working to make the car faster, Lamborghini decided to introduce a new 4-wheel drive system to the car. While this did improve the 0 to 60 time, it did make the car significantly heavier, meaning that the car even struggled to get past 200 miles an hour, bearing in mind that Miura and the Countach should get into 190, maybe 50 years earlier. Now, while Audi had found their groove and got the car going fast, Lamborghini had moved on to making the Huracan, as I mentioned earlier. So, because the car was never really polished, if you will, it's going to go in the B tier. Now, I just want to say the Gallardo is a good car, I do like it, however, I just don't think it's generally a good car, if you will. Now we're going to be talking about another German kit car which borrows the BMW M5 engine, this being the Veritas. So this looks like nothing I've ever seen before, it's just essentially a better version of the Wiesmann. Although it does actually have less power, due to it being incredibly aerodynamic, it can reach even higher top speeds and can accelerate a lot more quickly. Coupled with the fact that it weighs just over a tonne makes this car very fast. Now it has a chassis designed for racing and is very low to the ground. Apparently they tested this car on the Nürburgring to ensure that it feels like a true race car. But there's one factor preventing this car from going higher, and that's the price. Starting at £342,000, which is very expensive for a sports car, bearing in mind you can probably get a Gallardo for about £50,000. So for this reason the car is going to be stuck in the B tier. Now we're going to be talking about all the Audis that share the V10 engine, not the R8, we'll get to that in a bit later. These are the Audi S6, the S8 and the impressive RS6. Now these, like I mentioned before, all use the Gallardo 5.2 litre V10 engine, but the RS6 does have twin turbos. So firstly we'll talk about the S6 estate. Now this car took the Gallardo engine and put it in an estate car. And since Audi focuses on luxury rather than performance, this car is very nice, but it is also very heavy, nearly 2 tonnes to be exact, which is why they picked a powerful engine to ensure it moves quickly. But then Audi came out with the RS6 version.
Here from CarWow, and I want to take you back in time.
They took the standard car and fitted twin turbo strip. This resulted in 572 horsepower, 479 foot-pounds torque. 0 to 60 takes just 4.5 seconds, and it was one of the fastest estate cars of the 2000s. Not sure if any car has been faster actually. Then we're talking about the S8, and this car keeps a Gallardo engine. For some reason they've actually slightly detuned it, but despite weighing nearly 2 tonnes, it can still get 60 in around 5 seconds. This could be due to the Quattro's 4-wheel drive system. So yeah, like I said, these are very solid cars, but they're just nothing really special. Then we're going to talk about the BMW M5, and the M6, which use a Formula 1 derived engine for BMW. Now, I think this was actually in a collaboration with Williams F1 team. I'm not sure if they're still around now, or whether they've been bought by another company and changed their name. I'm not really sure about that one. But yeah, so technically it does have a F1 derived engine, if you will. Now, the BMW M5 can get to 190 miles an hour, but there are some, apparently there's been like a twin turbo variant that can get all the way to like 200 so these cars are very fast, there's no denying that, and they have the potential to be some of the fastest estate or saloon cars out there. This engine does sound fantastic, there's no denying that. BMW and Audi and that lot can make very good engines. And I think the M6 specifically does look really nice. Now, I'm not going to get into arguments about whether the Audi done it best and Lamborghini or the BMW done it best, but you have to admit there are lots of good cars that use it and 2 very good engines. So for that reason, this, although kicking off in the A tier, there's some which I'm sure you wouldn't expect, and that is a tank. Now, I must admit, I was also surprised to find that tanks use a V10. But let me tell you a little bit about it. So this is a Leopard 1 battle tank from 1965. Now, although many of them were built, it was never actually used in a large-scale war, which is obviously good. And one interesting thing to note is it was originally designed by Porsche, and yes, that Porsche, the one that does the 911s. Okay, so let's talk about the engine in this performance. That's a very big engine at 37.4 litres, producing over 830 horsepower. Now, I couldn't find the torque value, but I assume it's very high. Worth mentioning, it is actually a multi-fuel engine, so it can run on a lot of things, but diesel was predominantly used. And needs to be, considering this giant weighs in an impressive 39 tonnes. Now, despite its weight, the tank was actually surprisingly quick, capable of reaching 40 miles an hour. Not bad for a near 65-year-old engine, pushing around 39 tonnes. Also had the best power to weight ratio out of any tank of its time. I think it was also one of the fastest. So because of this, the Leopard tank, I'm surprised to say that, it's actually in A tier. Now, the next A tier car we're talking about is the Bristol Fighter. Now, there are 3 variants in this car. So the standard Fighter, the more powerful Fighter, and the ridiculous one we'll talk about at the end. It's a car essentially made for top speed using the Viper engine. Very long and swooping body, resulting in a drag coefficient at just 0.28, which is quite good. Now, the original Fighter, like I mentioned before, has the 8-litre Fighter V10. It's been slightly tuned to make 620 horsepower, 0 to 60 times quite slow at 4 seconds, but as I mentioned, it's geared towards top speed, and it can reach 210 miles an hour. But they weren't finished there, so they decided to tune the engine a bit more. You start getting 660 horsepower. 0 to 60 now takes less than 4 seconds, and it can even reach 212 miles an hour. Nice increase. But then they wanted to take it to the next level, and they decided to twin turbo the Viper V10. Now, for anyone who dared drive this, it made over 1,000 horsepower, resulting in the 0 to 60 at 3.4 seconds, but with a top speed of 225 miles per hour. It's because these cars are so extreme, which is so different from anything else that I've really seen, to be fair. I'm putting it in the A tier. Now, the next V10 car we're talking about is the well-known Lamborghini Sesto Elemento. Now, the reason why this car is not high is because it has the same engine as the R8 and the Huracan. Now, while the car is made for different purposes, it still has the same engine, so it's not really anything new. Now, the car weighs in at just under a tonne with 520 horsepower. So it is very quick, 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, which is quicker than Bugatti Veyron. And it claims top speed of over 220 miles an hour. Must admit, I'm not sure about that one, but we'll go with it. Now, the car is very fast, but it wasn't the most popular, as it cost nearly £3 million. This was due to a body being made completely of carbon fibre, so probably only reserved for the elites of Italy, should we say. and only 10 cars were sold, but purely because of its speed and just how extreme this is, this car belongs in the A tier. We can talk about another high performance car now, that being the Alfa Romeo 164 Pro car. This car is based on the original Alfa Romeo 164, and while this car may seem boring to begin with, Alfa Romeo decided to fit a 3.5 litre V10 engine, which was originally intended to be used for F1. They've essentially put an F1 engine in a normal Alfa Romeo, kind of what BMW did like 20 years later. Now you notice that in this video many of the cars were originally made for F1 and have been fitted into road cars. Now it has 620 horsepower and can rev to 30,000 RPM. Now, coupled with the fact that this car only weighs 750 kilograms makes it very fast. Like the Sesto Elemento I just mentioned, but on steroids. More power, more revs and less weight. And it does also sound amazing. Have a look at how this car sounds. Now when you talk about a fan favourite, this being the Dodge Ram, particularly the ones with the V10 engine. Now this car was originally made to compete with the Ford SVT Lightning, another fan favourite if you will. But for those that don't know, this is a high performance truck. And just like Bristol, it uses the Viper engine. Now it only had a 2-year production run, but it did produce quite a lot of cars. And there were 2 versions, I think, weighing from 2.3 to 2.5 tonnes. Both do 0 to 60 in around 5 seconds at top speed, around 150 to 155. Now, you may not or may not know this, but the smaller Bristol actually set the record for the fastest, the smaller Dodge Ram set the record for the fastest production truck ever recorded at 154 miles an hour. It's very impressive considering the big or high drag coefficient the Dodge Ram must have. Now, for this reason, it's in the A tier. Now, we're talking about cars at the top of the A tier. The first one being this Audi R15 TDI. This has a 5.5 litre turbo diesel, and as talked about earlier, this car only has one turbo. It's why this car is so high up, because of how good it was and how it promoted the use of other diesels in motorsport. Now, it may only have 600 horsepower, but it does generate a lot of torque, and it results in a very strong mid-range generation. This car was very successful in its class and set many records. Now, in 2010, responding to complaints against its rival Peugeot, also using a diesel engine, not a V10, Audi had to decrease the turbo pressure and change the master body, so essentially the turbo wasn't as strong, for those of you that don't know. But despite this, the German engineers were still able to extract just as much power as they were before the turbos were nerfed. And this car boasts good stats, but it can also back it up with a motorsport success, so for that reason it's in the very top of the A tier. Now the final cars in the A tier are the popular Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan. Now how can we have a V10 list and not mention these 2 cars? Now these cars have been the poster child for V10 supercars over the last decade or even more. They're the complete package really, performance equivalent to twin turbo and the Italian V12 cars. Very nice looking bodies. You can have up to 600 horsepower, and coupled with advanced 4-wheel drive system, they can accelerate to 60 in 2.8 seconds at a top speed of 205 miles per hour. Now, there are 2 things that make these cars so special. The first one is that they have an engine built specifically for these 2 cars. Okay, so now moving on to the S tier, which is reserved for the best of the best cars. So first off, you have a car that some of you may have seen or driven in Gran Turismo, and that is the Peugeot 905P. Now, this car has 750 horsepower V10 engine, but it weighed only 780 kilograms. It came first in the 24 Hour of Le Mans in 1992 and 1993. As we talked about earlier, it's got the stats and it's got a victory to back it up. So next car we're talking about, or motorbike I guess, is something I didn't even know existed, and that is the Dodge Tomahawk motorbike. That's a motorbike made by Dodge using the Viper engine. It may only have 500 horsepower, but it only weighs 680 kilograms. The reason why it's in the S tier is because of its performance. Apparently this car could achieve 420 miles an hour, no, not kilometres an hour. This was later revised to be only 300 miles an hour, which is still faster than any other production car on the planet even 20 years later. Now, despite being given top speed. Okay, so now I'm moving on to what I consider to be the ultimate V10 sports car, and that of course is the Dodge Viper. This was the first V10 production supercar and had a lifespan of over 15 years. One of the first cars that comes to people's mind when they think about V10 cars. Now, the car's improved a lot during its 15-year lifespan and had a total of 5 generations of different models. Let's start with the first generation all the way back in 1991.
The closest I've ever come to driving one of these is on Gran Turismo 1.
What you have to imagine is that most of the supercars back then were either V8 or V12s, so the arrival of the V10 production car did cause quite a stir. The car weighed 1.5 tonnes and it could accelerate 60 in 4.5 seconds, which is good for a sports car but not good enough for the likes of the F40 and the 959. Now, it's very expensive at $52,000, which is around $114,000 now, and had a low top speed, 155 miles an hour, because of its bad drag coefficient.
Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Viper was
Also, due to the absence of traction control and ABS, the car proved difficult to drive. Now, Dodge had the foundations for a very good supercar, but were not able to deliver, so they knew what they had to do for the next generation. And unlike the Gallardo, they didn't just move on to another car they perfected. So for the second generation, they kept the same engine, but they managed to extract more power and more torque from it. The car was also a little bit lighter and was able to accelerate 60 in around the same time, but it could reach up to 187 miles an hour, almost 20 miles an hour faster than the last generation. They also introduced an ACR variant which had even more power, but the car was a little bit more expensive. The third gen had upwards of 500 horsepower and was even lighter. The biggest change is that the car had been upgraded to 8.3 litres, making it one of the biggest production engines ever produced. To get to 60 in under 4 seconds at a top speed of 196 miles per hour. Okay, so next up we have one of the most beautiful cars that I have ever seen, and that is the Alfa Romeo TZ3 Stradale. So this car takes the Viper's engine, but it uses Alfa Romeo's style, which were kind of revived older Alfa Romeo model, hence the name. It takes the 8.4 litre Viper V10 engine from the later generations of the Viper, but they did have to reduce it to just 600 horsepower. It's basically just like an upgraded 8C, if you will. And while this may not be as fast as the Viper, I do think it looks a lot better, and for that reason it's going to be in the S tier. Okay, so then we come to the penultimate car on the list, and that is the Porsche Carrera GT, one of the best V10 cars ever produced. Now, it features a unique F1 made engine and was originally designed for an F1 car and it was modified for the road, whereas other cars are made to be close to Formula 1. It was one of the fastest naturally aspirated cars at the time, and thanks to good suspension setup and its lightweight body, it was very fast around the track. And a 5.7 litre V10, which was good for the... and a 5.7 litre V10, which rivals the likes of the Lexus LFA. Porsche always been able to get good engines, but this one was one of their best yet. Unlike the 911, it had its engine in the middle to ensure better weight distribution, so its car handled better. Yeah, it's just all the way. Yeah, its basic car handled better, and it had this all the way back in 2003. And due to good drag coefficient, it can reach 205 miles per hour with a 0-60 time of 3.6 seconds, which is respectable to this day. But the best thing about this car is definitely the sound. Listen to this. So now we come to the final car in the tier list, and that is the Lexus LFA.
If somebody were to offer me a choice of any car that had ever been made, ever, I would take a dark blue LFA. That's how much I love this thing. I mean, yes, there are faults. The petrol tank is too small. The seatbelt is idiotic. And joking aside, I would like a cup holder. But the rest of it is so exquisite. I'm going to say it. It's the best car I've ever driven. It really is.
Now, unlike Porsche, who had been making high-end supercars for over 50 years, before they decided to make the Carrera GT, Lexus was still a relatively small brand making luxury cars for Toyota. So when they announced they'd be making a supercar, you could see why the public was so excited. While this car was not intended to be the fastest thing around, its performance was still decent. 200 miles an hour and 0-60 under 4 seconds is still pretty good. This is slightly limited due to the car's heavy weight being over 1,600 kilograms. Some of this weight could still be because Lexus wanted to stick to their original roots and make the car luxurious while still being fast. Let's talk about the best thing about this car, which is the engine. As many of you may know, this engine was co-developed by Yamaha, and they know a thing or two about making musical instruments, so their challenge was to get this car to sound like an F1 car for the road. They did a good job. It can rev all the way to 9,500 RPM. It could rev so quick that an analog rev counter was actually too slow, considered by many, myself included, to be the best sounding car ever made. What do you think? Like and subscribe.